What kind of person claims a driveway they don't own, paints it a garish red, and calls it their own personal masterpiece? That's the question that burned in my mind as I stared at the crimson monstrosity that used to be my smooth, gray driveway. My name is Elise Harper, and I'd lived in the quiet cul-de-sac of Willow Grove for 10 years, a place where neighbors waved, kids played, and life felt like a gentle hum. Until Karen Whitmore moved in next door. She arrived like a storm, her voice sharp enough to cut glass, her eyes scanning for flaws in our peaceful community. From day one, she declared herself the unofficial queen of the Homeowners Association, wielding rules like a scepter. But this was war. It started on a humid July morning. I woke to the sound of clanging metal and the sharp scent of paint. Stepping outside, I froze. My driveway, my private, paid-for, deed-stamped driveway, was half covered in a glossy, fire engine red. Karen stood there, paint roller in hand, her blonde bob immaculate despite the chaos. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice trembling with disbelief. She didn't even flinch. "This driveway's an eyesore, Elise. I'm fixing it. Red diamond's the new trend. HOA approved, of course." Her smile was all teeth, no warmth. I pointed to the property line, marked clearly by the surveyor's stakes from when I bought the house. "That's my land, Karen. You can't just paint it." She waved a manicured hand, dismissing me like I was a pesky fly. The HOA voted. "We're standardizing aesthetics. You'll thank me later." I didn't thank her. I was livid. My driveway wasn't just a slab of concrete. It was where my daughter, Mia, learned to ride her bike, where my late husband, Tom, used to wash his car, whistling old jazz tunes. It was mine, and Karen had defiled it. I stormed to the HOA meeting that evening, armed with my deed and a fire in my chest. The room was a sea of nervous glances, neighbors avoiding my eyes. Karen sat at the head of the table, her clipboard a shield. "The vote was unanimous," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "We're elevating property values." I slammed the deed down. "This is my property. You had no right." The room went silent, but no one backed me. Not even Paul, my neighbor of 8 years, who just stared at his shoes. Betrayal stung sharper than Karen's smug grin. I spent the next week researching. The HOA bylaws were a labyrinth, but I found a loophole. No rule explicitly allowed altering private property without consent. I called a lawyer, Sarah, who confirmed Karen's stunt was illegal. "File a complaint," Sarah urged. "You've got a case." But Karen wasn't just a neighbor. She was a force. She'd already rallied the HOA board, spinning tales of my uncooperative attitude. Whispers spread. Karen's version of the truth painted me as the villain, the cranky widow standing in the way of progress. I overheard Mrs. Delaney at the grocery store. "Elise is so selfish. Karen's just trying to make the neighborhood nice." Nice. My driveway looked like a candy apple, and my heart felt like it was cracking. Then came the twist that turned my anger into something colder, sharper. Mia, my 16-year-old, came home in tears one afternoon. "Mom, Karen banned me from the HOA pool." My heart stopped. What? What? Mia's voice shook. "She said I was disruptive because I splashed water during a game." "She's lying, Mom. I was just swimming with friends." I pulled Mia close, her sobs soaking my shirt. The pool was her sanctuary, the place where she laughed with friends, where she felt free after Tom's death. Karen hadn't just stolen my driveway. She'd targeted my daughter. That was the moment I stopped playing nice. If Karen wanted a war, I'd give her one, but not with paint cans or HOA votes. I'd hit her where it hurt most, her precious pool, the crown jewel of her HOA empire. I spent sleepless nights plotting. The pool was on HOA land, but access was tricky. The main gate was on a narrow path that ran alongside my property line. Another entrance, less used, cut through a shared easement behind my house. Both could be influenced. I wasn't breaking laws. I was playing by Karen's rules, bending them to my will. I called Sarah again, who laughed when I explained my plan. "It's petty, but legal," she said. "Just don't get caught in the act." I wouldn't. I'd learned from Karen, bold moves, no apologies. By the end of the week, I had everything in place. Permits, contractors, and a plan to make Karen regret ever picking up that paint roller. The cul-de-sac was about to become a battlefield, and I was ready to fight dirty. My first move was subtle, almost invisible. I hired a landscaping crew to install a privacy hedge along the narrow path to the pool's main gate. The permit was airtight. Sarah made sure of it. By Friday, a row of dense, thorny hawthorns stood like sentinels, their branches just kissing the edge of my property line. The path was still technically accessible, but good luck squeezing through without a scratch. I watched from my porch as Karen tried it, her sundress snagging, her face twisting in frustration. "Elise, this is ridiculous," she shouted, untangling herself. I sipped my coffee, calm as a summer breeze. "Just beautifying my property, Karen." HOA approved, of course. Her eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. Round one mine. The neighborhood buzzed. Some, like Paul, avoided me, their loyalty swayed by Karen's charm. Others, like old Mrs. Carter, gave me sly nods, as if they'd been waiting for someone to stand up to the tyrant. But Karen wasn't deterred. She doubled down, posting flyers about a community cleanup to restore order. I found one taped to my mailbox, the words "cooperation expected" underlined in red. It was a threat, plain and simple. I tore it down, my hands shaking not with fear, but with purpose. Karen thought she could bully me into submission. She had no idea who she was dealing with. The second access point to the pool was trickier. The easement behind my house was shared, but I owned the strip of land just before it. I couldn't block it outright. That would have landed me in court, but I could make it inconvenient. I called a contractor friend, Mike, who owed me a favor. "I need something temporary but annoying," I told him. He grinned. "Say no more." By Monday, a construction zone appeared, orange cones, caution tape, and a pile of gravel that just happened to spill over the easement's edge. A sign read, "Driveway repairs in progress." It wasn't a lie. My driveway needed repaving after Karen's paint job. But the timing? Pure strategy. Swimmers now had to trek through mud or brave my thorny hedge. Complaints piled up at the HOA, but my permits were ironclad. Karen's face at the next meeting was a storm cloud, her clipboard trembling in her hands. Then came the twist that nearly broke me. I found a letter in my mailbox, typed and signed, but reeking of Karen's venom. "Your daughter's a troublemaker," it read. "Keep her in line, or the pool's just the start." My blood ran cold. Mia hadn't been to the pool since her ban, but this felt personal, a knife aimed at my heart. I showed it to Sarah, who frowned. "It's harassment, but without proof it's her, we can't act." I didn't need proof to know. Karen had crossed a line, dragging my daughter into her vendetta. I sat up that night, the letter crumpled in my fist, Mia's tear-streaked face flashing in my mind. This wasn't just about a driveway anymore. It was about protecting my family, my home, my dignity. I escalated. The gravel pile grew, accidentally blocking the easement entirely. I added a motion sensor light that blazed whenever someone tried the path at night, startling nosy HOA members. Karen retaliated, filing a complaint with the city, claiming my hedge was a public hazard. The inspector, a tired man named Greg, came by, measured the hedge, and shrugged. "It's on her property," he told Karen. "Nothing I can do." Her scream of frustration was music to my ears. But I wasn't done. I found an old HOA rule about temporary structures and used it to erect a tall wooden fence along the easement's edge, painted a soft gray to match my original driveway. It was legal, beautiful, and a giant middle finger to Karen's red obsession. The neighborhood split like a fault line. Half saw me as a rebel, fighting the HOA's overreach. The other half, Karen's loyalists, called me a menace. At the grocery store, whispers followed me. "She's ruining the community," one woman hissed. Mrs. Carter, buying apples nearby, snorted. "Karen's the one ruining things. Elise is just fighting back." I didn't care about the gossip. I cared about Mia, who was starting to smile again, sketching designs for a new garden where the gravel sat. I cared about Tom's memory, which Karen had tried to erase with her paint. Most of all, I cared about winning. Karen had started this, but I'd finish it on my terms. The tension in Willow Grove crackled like a live wire. Every morning, I checked my hedge, my fence, my gravel pile, expecting sabotage. Karen wasn't one to surrender. Sure enough, one dawn, I found my caution tape slashed, the gravel scattered across the easement. No proof, Of course, Karen was too smart for cameras, but her smirk at the next HOA meeting told me everything. "Vandalism's such a shame," she said, her voice syrupy. "We're looking into security measures." I bit my tongue, knowing she'd turn any outburst against me. Instead, I doubled my efforts. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd play smarter. I started attending every HOA meeting, not to argue, but to listen. Karen's power came from control of information, of votes, of narratives. I took notes, memorized bylaws, and quietly rallied allies. Mrs. Carter was first, her sharp wit cutting through Karen's propaganda. Then came Javier, a single dad who'd clashed with Karen over his son's skateboard ramp. Slowly, others joined, people tired of her micromanaging, her fines, her red paint. We formed a silent coalition, meeting in my living room over coffee and Mia's homemade cookies. "She's a bully," Javier said, his voice low. "But bullies fall when you push back." I nodded, feeling the tide shift. The twist hit like a punch. One evening, Mia came home from school, her backpack slung low, her eyes red. "Mom, someone spray-painted troublemaker on my locker." My heart sank. I held her, my mind racing. Karen's letter had been a warning. This was escalation. I called the school, but the cameras hadn't caught the culprit. Mia begged me to let it go. "It's just paint," she whispered, but her voice cracked. I saw Tom in her eyes, his quiet strength, and I knew I couldn't stop. Karen wasn't just fighting me. She was trying to break my daughter's spirit. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, plotting my next move with a clarity that scared me. This wasn't about the pool or the driveway anymore. It was about justice. I turned to the HOA's own weapons, paperwork and persistence. I filed a formal grievance, citing Karen's unauthorized painting as property damage. I included photos, my deed, and Sarah's legal opinion. The board, cornered by my evidence, scheduled a hearing. Karen's response was swift. She organized a neighborhood beautification rally, painting more driveways red, claiming it was community spirit. My allies fought back, distributing flyers with the truth. Karen's actions were illegal, her leadership a sham. The cul-de-sac became a chessboard, each move calculated, each countermove bolder. Karen's flyers littered mailboxes. Mine, signed by 10 neighbors, called for her resignation. The hearing was a circus. Karen arrived in a crisp blazer, her clipboard a prop, her voice dripping with authority. "Elise is obstructing progress," she declared, gesturing to a PowerPoint of red driveways labeled Willow Grove's future. I stood, my hands steady, and presented my case. The deed, the bylaws, the photos of her vandalism. The room was split. Karen's loyalists clapped. My allies glared. Then Mrs. Carter stood. "Karen fined me for my rose bushes, said they were too wild. She's a dictator, not a leader." Javier followed. Then others, their voices rising. Karen's face paled, her clipboard useless against the truth. The board postponed a decision, but I saw fear in her eyes. For the first time, she wasn't in control. That night, I reinforced my defenses. The hedge grew thicker, the fence taller. I added a locked gate to the easement, citing security concerns after the vandalism. Swimmers stopped coming. The pool sat empty, its water still under the summer sun. Karen's pride and joy was a ghost town, and I felt a flicker of victory. But Mia's locker haunted me. I couldn't prove Karen's involvement, but I knew she'd orchestrated it, just as she'd painted my driveway. She wasn't just fighting for control, she was fighting to dominate, to erase anyone who challenged her. I lay awake, wondering how far she'd go, and how far I'd have to go to stop her. The standoff reached a boiling point. Karen's next move was a cease and desist letter, delivered by a nervous courier. It accused me of obstructing public access with my hedge and fence, demanding I remove them or face a lawsuit. I laughed, handing it to Sarah. "She's desperate," Sarah said, scanning the letter. "This is flimsy," her lawyers grasping at straws. But Karen's desperation made her dangerous. She started patrolling the cul-de-sac, clipboard in hand, noting every violation. My mailbox's chipped paint, Mrs. Carter's overgrown roses, Javier's son's basketball hoop. Fines arrived in mailboxes like clockwork, each one a jab in her campaign to wear us down. I countered with precision. I hired a surveyor to remark my property line, ensuring every inch of my hedge and fence was legal. The bright yellow stakes gleamed, a silent rebuke to Karen's red paint. I posted the surveyor's report online, tagging the HOA's public forum. Comments flooded in, some angry, some supportive, but all buzzing with the drama. Karen's rally had backfired. Her red driveways were now a symbol of her overreach. Neighbors who'd stayed silent began speaking up. "She fined me for my dog barking," one posted. "She tried to ban my Christmas lights," another added. The tide was turning, but Karen wasn't done. The twist deepened my resolve. I found Mia sketching in her room, her face pale. "Mom, I heard Karen talking to Principal Evans at school. She said I'm a bad influence and should be suspended." My stomach churned. Karen wasn't just targeting me. She was weaponizing her influence to hurt my daughter. I called Sarah, who advised restraint. "Gather evidence," she said. "Don't confront her yet." But restraint felt like surrender. I drove to the school, demanding a meeting. Principal Evans was evasive, admitting Karen had concerns, but no formal complaint. I left shaking, knowing Karen's whispers were poisoning Mia's world. That night, I hugged Mia tighter, promising her we'd win. She nodded, but her eyes were distant, her trust shaken. The confrontation came at the next HOA meeting, packed with neighbors, the air thick with tension. Karen stood, her voice steady, proposing a new rule. Non-compliant properties could lose HOA privileges, including pool access. It was aimed at me, a public shaming. I stood, my voice calm but iron. "Karen vandalized my property. She's harassed my daughter. This isn't leadership, it's tyranny." Gasps rippled through the room. I held up the surveyor's report, the deed, the photos. "She's broken the law, and you've let her." Karen's face flushed, her clipboard slamming the table. "You're a liar, Elise," she shouted. Mrs. Carter stood. "No, she's not. You fine me for nothing. You're out of control." Javier joined. Then others, their voices a chorus. Karen's allies faltered, their loyalty cracking under the weight of truth. The board called a recess, but the damage was done. Karen's empire was crumbling, her authority questioned. That night, someone slashed my hedge, leaving a trail of red paint. I didn't need a camera to know it was her. I called the police, who took a report but found no proof. Sarah urged me to press charges anyway. "It's a pattern," she said. "Document everything." I did, photographing every leaf, every streak of paint. But I didn't stop there. I ordered a delivery of decorative boulders, placing them along the easement's edge, each one heavy enough to deter trespassers. The pool was now a fortress, accessible only by a treacherous detour through a muddy field. Karen's dream was dying, and I was the one holding the axe. Karen's fall was swift, but not silent. She fought like a cornered animal, her emails to the HOA board frantic, accusing me of sabotage, defamation, everything short of witchcraft. But the evidence was undeniable. My deed, the surveyor's stakes, the bylaws she'd twisted. The board, pressured by my allies, called an emergency vote to remove her as president. Karen arrived at the meeting in a tailored suit, her face a mask of confidence, but her hands betrayed her, clutching her clipboard like a lifeline. I sat in the front row, Mia beside me, her sketchbook closed, her eyes fierce. She'd insisted on coming, refusing to let Karen intimidate her further. The vote was close. Karen's loyalists fought hard, but truth won. By a margin of 2 votes, she was ousted. The room erupted, some cheering, others muttering. Karen stood, her voice shaking. "You'll regret this," she hissed, her eyes locking on mine. I didn't flinch. "No, Karen, you will." She stormed out, leaving her clipboard behind, a fallen scepter. The board elected Mrs. Carter as interim president, and her first act was to nullify Karen's fines and reinstate Mia's pool access. Mia hugged me, her smile brighter than it had been in weeks. But I knew Karen wouldn't go quietly. The twist came the next morning. My mailbox was stuffed with a new letter, this time with a photo. Mia at the pool, laughing with friends, taken before the ban. Scrawled in red marker, "Watch your back." My heart raced, but I didn't show Mia. I called Sarah, who filed a restraining order. "She's unhinged," Sarah warned. "Stay vigilant." I installed security cameras, their red lights glowing like eyes in the dark. Karen's house was quiet, her car gone for days. Rumors spread. She'd left town, humiliated. But I didn't trust it. Bullies like Karen don't vanish. They regroup. I kept my defenses up. The boulders stayed. The hedge grew wilder. The pool remained empty, a silent monument to Karen's defeat. Neighbors started talking to me again, some apologizing for staying silent. Paul stopped by, shame in his eyes. I should have backed you, he said. I nodded, forgiving but not forgetting. Mia started swimming again, her laughter echoing through the cul-de-sac. I repaved my driveway, erasing every trace of red, replacing it with smooth gray. It felt like reclaiming a piece of Tom, of us. But the victory was bittersweet. Karen's shadow lingered, her threats a dark cloud. Then, the final blow. The police called. Karen had been caught vandalizing another neighbor's property, her red paint cans in hand. She'd snapped, her obsession with control consuming her. She faced charges, not just for vandalism, but for harassment, thanks to my documentation. The restraining order held. She was barred from Willow Grove. The neighborhood exhaled, the tension dissipating like fog. Mrs. Carter organized a community barbecue by the pool, and for the first time in months, we laughed together, kids splashing, burgers sizzling. Mia sketched the scene, her pencil capturing joy instead of pain. The barbecue was a turning point. Willow Grove felt alive again, neighbors reconnecting, the pool sparkling under the sun. Mia dove in, her laughter a melody I'd missed. I stood with Mrs. Carter, watching the kids play. You did this, she said, her eyes warm. You stood up to her. I shook my head. We did this. It wasn't just my fight. It was Javier's, Mrs. Carter's, every neighbor who'd found their voice. Karen's reign had exposed cracks in our community, but it also showed our strength. We were more than a cul-de-sac. We were a family, flawed but fierce. I kept the cameras on, just in case. Sarah called with updates. Karen's case was moving forward, her charges piling up. She'd moved to an apartment across town, her HOA dreams shattered. Part of me pitied her. Her need for control had consumed her, leaving her alone. But pity didn't erase the pain she'd caused. Mia's locker, the threats, my driveway. They were scars, reminders of what we'd endured. I channeled that energy into rebuilding. The hedge stayed, but I trimmed it, letting light through. The boulders became a garden, Mia's sketches brought to life with flowers and stones. The fence remained, a quiet boundary, a symbol of my resolve. One evening, Mia sat me down. Mom, I want to start an art club at school. For kids like me, who need a place to feel safe. Her eyes shone with purpose, and I saw Tom in her, his quiet courage. I hugged her, tears pricking my eyes. Do it, I said. I'll help. We spent weeks planning, turning pain into something beautiful. The club launched, and Mia's smile as she taught younger kids to draw was brighter than any victory over Karen. It was healing, not just for her, but for me. The cul-de-sac joined in, donating supplies, cheering at the first art show. Willow Grove was ours again. But healing wasn't forgetting. I kept Karen's letters, the photos, the surveyor's report, locked in a drawer. They were a reminder. Never let someone steal your voice, your home, your peace. I walked my driveway every morning, its gray surface smooth under my feet, a quiet triumph. Mia swam, laughed, drew. The pool was full again, the neighborhood alive. We'd fought a war, not with weapons, but with truth, courage, and community. And we'd won. The seasons changed, and Willow Grove settled into a new rhythm. The pool stayed open later. The HOA meetings became discussions, not decrees. Mrs. Carter led with fairness, her rose bushes blooming without fear of fines. Mia's art club grew, her sketches now murals on the community center's walls. I found peace in small moments. Coffee on my porch, neighbors waving, Mia's laughter. But I never forgot the fight. It had changed me, sharpened my edges, taught me to stand taller. Karen's red paint was gone, but its memory lingered, a lesson in resilience. One spring morning, a letter arrived, not from Karen, but from a lawyer. She'd settled out of court, paying for my driveway's repaving and issuing a formal apology. It was cold, perfunctory, but it closed the chapter. I framed it, not out of spite, but as a reminder of what we'd overcome. Mia saw it and laughed. "Mom, you're such a warrior." I smiled, pulling her close. "So are you." We'd faced a bully, rebuilt a community, and found strength in each other. The cul-de-sac was more than a place now. It was a story of survival, of fighting for what's yours, of never backing down. As summer returned, the pool sparkled, kids splashing, neighbors chatting. I walked my driveway, gray and perfect, Tom's memory alive in every step. Mia swam, her stroke strong, her future bright. We'd turned pain into purpose, anger into art. Willow Grove wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And that was enough.